watching Our Time on Freedom. I'm Mikhail Baranov in the studio. Hello. Next, we'll talk about the important news of Thursday. Before a new round of talks between Washington and Kyiv and Geneva, Russia launched another massive strike on Ukraine. Last night, the Russian army fired dozens of missiles of various types and hundreds of drones of different modifications. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, the occupiers used 11 Iskander-M ballistic missiles for the attack. 2 Zircon anti-ship missiles and the same number of Kh-69s were also used. In addition, Russia launched 24 Kh-101 cruise missiles and more than 400 drones, most of which were Shaheds. Air Defense forces managed to neutralize 406 aerial targets. According to the military, there were confirmed hits from 5 ballistic missiles and 46 drones. The Russians launched 18 attack UAVs and 2 Iskander ballistic missiles at Kharkiv. Explosions were heard for 2 hours straight. 16 people were injured, including 2 children. Hits were recorded in 4 districts of the city. 3 private houses were destroyed and apartment buildings were heavily damaged. More details about the consequences of the combined attack by the Russian Federation on Kharkov civilians in a report by Natalia Belakudri.
This used to be the kitchen, yes. All passersby. That's where the bathroom was. That's the room where my wife is standing. There used to be a shay here. There's nothing left.
Standing on the ruins of his home, Vadim shows what it looked like before the Russian drone strike. It dove straight onto their house, almost completely destroying it.
I heard something growling, then an explosion, and flashing, flickering lights. We rushed out as fast as we could, put on whatever shoes and clothes we managed to grab. We ran straight outside. Everything was on fire here and over there, too. I mean...
Nothing.
The wardrobe saved us. The door shielded us, at least a little.
Vadim's neighbor, Amanin, says that after the strike, a huge fire broke out. There were fires in 2 places. His house and car are gone.
There is absolutely no way to bring it back to life. All the walls are broken, torn down. There are no ceilings, no walls.
Rescuers arrived at the scene of the attack right away and quickly managed to put out the fire.
Based on the initial preliminary findings that we have successfully gathered so far,
data from the Kharkiv Regional Prosecutor's Office, Russian forces used 2 Iskander-M missiles, 20 Lancet drones, and 3 aerial bombs to strike the Kharkiv region. The attack lasted for 2 hours. 4 districts came under fire.
The shelling was extremely chaotic and confusing. As for the ballistic missiles, they targeted an industrial facility in the city of Kharkiv. As for the Shaheds, they hit 11 locations in different districts of Kharkiv.
A 16-story dormitory building where displaced people from the Kupiansk district also live was also hit by the enemy. Here, a Shahed drone crashed into the wall, punching right through it. People say it was extremely loud and terrifying, but most importantly, everyone survived. We
weren't hit too badly. The windows were blown out, and on the other side of the building, it flew right into an apartment. The 5th floor.
It's scary. I can't get out of this stressed state right now. I'm shaken. My blood pressure is high. They just gave me some help over there. Someone's bringing me tea.
As a result of the shelling in Kharkiv, at least 67 residential buildings were damaged. More than 600 windows were shattered. There was also damage to the power grid and gas pipeline in one of the districts. Restoration work is ongoing.
Victims in Kryvyi Rih as well. That's in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Russian troops damaged a 5-story building with drones. 2 people were injured. They have already been hospitalized, according to the head of the regional military administration, Alexander Hanja. In the Nikopol district, the Russians struck several communities. Private homes and cars were damaged. There were no casualties. In the Poltava region, an industrial facility was attacked. This was reported by the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. A power line was also damaged. Nearly 20,000 customers are without electricity. Specialists are working to restore power supply. Russian forces also struck residential neighborhoods in Zaporizhzhia. The occupiers used drones, ballistic missiles, and guided aerial bombs. Residents counted about 20 explosions. As a result of the shelling, 10 people were injured, including an 8-year-old child. More than 80 apartment buildings and private homes were damaged. Windows were blown out, balconies were destroyed. 2 shopping centers were affected. One of them was half burned down. How the people of Zaporizhzhia endured the attack is in our next report.
The Russians began their attack around 3 in the morning. One of the attack drones struck an apartment building. The drone exploded on the roof, and apartments on the upper floors caught fire. The blast shattered all the windows in this and neighboring buildings.
I was already awake. They woke me up.
I was already awake. They woke me up. They woke me up at 3 in the morning, and at 4 it hit. The windows were blown out, and now the wind is blowing through the balcony into the room.
Another drone crashed into the wall of a 9-story building in the neighboring courtyard. The explosion blew out the windows in the apartments. Lilia says shards of glass injured her hand and face.
The window was blown out along with the frame. Everything fell onto the bed, and my hand was hurt and my face a little too. It's okay, it'll heal before the wedding.
Lilia, along with her daughter and grandson, are displaced persons. 4 years ago, fleeing from shelling, they left the village of Kamensky, which is now under occupation. After the shelling, almost nothing was left of their house. They never thought the same thing would happen to the apartment they rented in Zaporizhzhia. Things are really bad with the apartment.
Things are really bad with the apartment. The windows were blown out. The bathroom wall was completely blown out, leaving a large opening in the room. It's impossible to even get to the kitchen. The fridge fell over in there. There's blood everywhere because Grandma got hurt.
2 shopping centers were hit. One had its display windows blown out. The other one was half burned. Explosions in the 9-story buildings damaged the exterior walls and floor slabs. To keep the buildings from collapsing, rescuers are reinforcing the structures. There's a lot.
A work to do. Right now, we're dealing with emergency overhanging structures. After that, we'll start clearing and hauling away the debris.
The attacks continued during the day. A drone strike damaged a school building. Classes were in session during the explosion. The children and staff were in a shelter and were not harmed.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy responded to the combined attack by the Russian army. He stated that most of the launch missiles and drones were destroyed thanks to the timely delivery of air defense missiles from partners. He emphasized that this support must not stop.
Most of the missiles launched today were shot down thanks to the fact that our partners quickly sent some of the air defense missiles that were agreed upon during the last Ramstein meeting. But unfortunately, there were also hits, and that means we need to keep working even more actively. The cold hasn't fully retreated. We need air defense missiles every day as long as Russia keeps trying to destroy our energy infrastructure. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Ukraine's general staff reported 235 combat clashes in the past day. The situation is most intense in the Pokrovsk direction, where defenders repelled 57 assaults by Russian troops. There were 36 in the Huyaipo sector and 18 in the Kostiantinovka sector. On the Lyman section of the front, Russian forces tried 11 times to break through the defenses of Ukrainian defenders. On the North Slobozhanska and Kursk bridgeheads, 12 Russian attacks were repelled. Ukrainian defense forces eliminated 1,360 Russian occupiers over the past day. Thus, Russia's total combat losses since the start of the full-scale war have already exceeded 1,263,000 soldiers. In addition, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, 3 Russian tanks, 25 artillery systems, 4 multiple rocket launchers, and 93 enemy vehicles were destroyed yesterday. Members of the military partisan movement Atesh have created an air corridor for Ukrainian drones in occupied Crimea. They disabled the antennas of Russian electronic warfare systems. The sabotage was carried out near the village of Goncharno in the Sevastopol area. According to the partisans, enemy electronic warfare operations in the sector have been completely halted. As a result of the fire in the relay cabinets, the power electronics and cables were destroyed. Restoring this kind of equipment is extremely difficult, expensive, and time-consuming, according to AITS. I should note that this act of sabotage has not only military value, but also a certain symbolism. Today, Ukraine marks the day of resistance to the Russian occupation of Crimea.
When we say that the aggressor should not receive any reward for the war so that peace can truly last, everyone must understand these are not just words. Unfortunately, the world already had a chance to see this for itself 12 years ago. Russia's war against Ukraine began with the occupation of our Crimea, and the world basically turned a blind eye to it. Back then, the leaders weren't interested in the rallies and resistance in Crimea or in the feelings of Ukraine at all. The world advised Ukraine to stay silent. That's exactly why Putin believed he could get away with a much bigger war and a harsher confrontation with the West.
U.S. President Donald Trump is disappointed with the progress of peace talks in Ukraine. This was stated by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who emphasized that since there is no military solution to this issue, it is necessary to continue the dialogue about a ceasefire. Rubio also noted that the United States is the only country in the world that can act as a catalyst for negotiations, and he confirmed that the U.S. continues to exert influence on Moscow.
The administration continues to increase pressure on Moscow. For example, at the end of last year, U.S. President Donald Trump imposed additional sanctions on the oil company Rosneft. The administration continues to sell weapons to Ukraine. We do not sell weapons to Russia and do not impose sanctions against Ukraine. We value the fact that President Trump is the only world leader who has a chance to bring these two sides to the negotiating table.
The guest, U.S. Secretary, once again emphasized that the war unleashed by Russia against Ukraine has no military solution and will ultimately be resolved through negotiations. Rubio also acknowledged that Trump's patience is not unlimited, but declined to predict exactly when the White House might change its approach. In Geneva, the Ukrainian delegation continues its work as part of the negotiation process. As NSDC Secretary Rustem Umerov stated, the bilateral meeting with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner has already begun. Umerov also provided information about the key issues being discussed with the American team and emphasized that the Ukrainian delegation is counting on concrete results.
We will thoroughly work out the mechanisms for economic support and recovery of Ukraine, tools for attracting investment, and long-term cooperation. We'll also discuss preparations for the next round of trilateral negotiations involving the Russian side. It is necessary to synchronize our positions before this stage. An important section is the humanitarian track and issues of possible exchanges. We are counting on concrete results and bringing our citizens back. We're working towards practical solutions. Rustem Umerov, Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, on Telegram.
On the eve of the meeting between the Ukrainian and American delegations in Geneva, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Donald Trump had a phone conversation. It lasted about 30 minutes. And as the Ukrainian leader reported, the conversation included Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. Volodymyr Zelenskyy thanked them for their efforts and involvement in the negotiations to end the war, as well as for the Pearl program, which allows Ukraine to purchase missiles for air defense systems from the United States.
They discussed the issues that our representatives will be working on at the bilateral meeting in Geneva. They also talked about preparing for the next round for the full negotiation teams in a trilateral format, which will take place at the very beginning of March. We expect that this meeting will allow us to move on to negotiations at the leaders' level. President Trump supports this sequence of steps. Only in this way can all the complex and sensitive issues be resolved and finally the war be ended.